Hmm. 20日前、8月7日でした。じゃあ、このビデオを始めます。イェーイ。今、英語で話します。Hi, everybody. Well, 20 days ago, it was 8月7日. But as you probably noticed, there was no official Nautica special, at least not yet, on the channel. So this is basically going to be a Nanoka-ish special because 今日は8月27日です。So, I think that's how you say it. This is going to prove very quickly that I'm still very intro level in Japanese by spending 2 months learning the language. But yeah, welcome to the Nanoka-ish Special, where I'm going to do a little bit of an AMA. So feel free to ask me anything in the chat or just in general, and then I'll try and see if I can like answer it as well during the legit Nanoka Special, which will be coming up via vlog format. Um, right now, I'm actually transferring some stuff to my new laptop. So originally, it was going to be a simulcast, but turns out transferring wirelessly takes a while. So I'm doing this live stream here on Twitch, and then I will later put this unedited video on my YouTube. So basically, but eventually, the proper Nanoka special for 2025, the second one, will be in a vlog format, and that will come out. I don't know when, but it's not going to be in August, that's for sure, because it's going to take a while, because I literally have too much footage going on here. So, yeah. So, you probably noticed on my Twitch, I dropped off after week 2. Huge apologies for that. But there's a little bit of an explanation for why, um, which I will go through in this video. So, I'm wondering, what the heck was I doing in 2 months, and why was I talking in Japanese during that period? Well, it's because during that time I was at the Middlebury Language School. So, Middlebury Language School is associated with the college, and what they do to help people gain fluency rather quickly is they have people sign a language pledge, which means you cannot speak anything other than your target language for anywhere between 3 weeks to 2 months. Depends on the language that you do. I did Japanese, so my pledge lasts 2 months. But yet, for some other languages like Hebrew and Abenaki, they can go as short as 3 weeks. So, the majority of languages tend to go for about 7. The Asiatic languages tend to go for 8 because we have a writing system we have now of the language, and other ones your miles. Hebrew has 2 versions of the program, one is 3 weeks and one is 7. Abenaki, which is the indigenous language up in Vermont, also lasts uh, so I think they're starting about 6, according to the site. And keep in mind, this is what I know as of this cycle, as of 2020. Things could change pretty dramatically after I put this video up, so please keep that in mind. Like, for example, they recently started up a doctorate in Middlebury. This is the first cycle, and that was not an option. And there have been several other changes that came to the end of the program. I don't know if I'll talk about in this video, but I certainly would like to highlight here. So, so yeah, take some of the stuff that I told you with a grain of salt, but for the most part, it was a very, very interesting time in the last. So, yeah, to continue with AMA, I guess I'm gonna have to talk about. I'm going to talk about like some of the most frequently asked questions that I've had in real life, and then if anybody happens to um, add stuff in the chat, like what I can. Excuse me. So I'll answer what I can. So, so yeah, the first question that also comes to mind is why am I studying Japanese? And for those who are familiar with my past content, well, you've tried studying Japanese in the past and haven't stuck, so um, it's been a very long time interest into Japanese culture. Basically, I did Aikido for 15 years, it's sort of more based and and I practiced with a Japanese master. So I didn't find out it was early this year. Heard shocked. It was kind of weird. I needed going through those dreams that I can go for it. And the other thing that I really wanted, um, was for once to have a language that I could use. Because my comprehension is actually pretty good in terms of other languages. Besides English, I know Cameroonian Pidgin, French, and Spanish. I know there's some people who are like, there's people who make comments. People say that they don't comprehend what's going on, but then try to translate what's really wrong. But for me, it's different. I actually can understand what you're saying, and oftentimes when I do explain it, I'm actually pretty correct. People have told me so. Problem is, I often don't have the language. So that was like the common kind of always just, I understand what people are saying, I know what people are talking about, but I can't respond in the language. And what I learned pretty quickly through this program was comprehension and communication are completely different muscles. They're very different muscles. This was a good opportunity to finally practice my um, communication muscle. It's something that I haven't adequately done really since actually 3 years ago. So when I last took it. So this was the thing that I was for once to have a language that I can understand and communicate besides English. So functionally, I'm pretty much a mono. Um, at least I was at this point. I think either. So that's what's up. And my professor, um, I love him. I love those. He basically ended up as like, I want more. Both of myself and it's a pretty. I felt like that was a pretty good goal at this juncture, and I could be working in the language in the future. So I figured this was a good thing to go for. It also it brought up a lot of stuff which I'll put into more detail in the talk. Some point. It's still kind of articulating integrated. Programming away was kind of like technical. It's more process in a different space and in ways that are it's very hard to explain unless you've tried to like Yeah, I'll play more on the question. So that was a big thing. Uh, why are you going for Japanese? Well, besides the obvious nerdy stuff, um, childhood dreams and childhood dreams, want to be a polyglot. So the next question um, that could come up is, well, what did I use to learn the language? And that's an easy question that I can. So a lot of blogs that I kept on seeing about the Japanese school, they all kept mentioning Kavira, which is another series of books. Um, the beginners are using Kavira, the more advanced people are using Kavira. So I thought, okay, so I'm gonna have to use Kavira. So I left my Genki textbook in the thought that I was gonna have to use an entirely new set, and I would try to use those books dependent on the Genki system. Wanted to try. So you can imagine my surprise when I show up to the bookstore. I get put into my level, and then I find out they're using Genki. They're using Genki too. So I had to call the parents and be like, can you ship this before the first of the classes come in? It came in a few days after first day classes happened. Thankfully, it was in the return window, so I was able to return the books I originally bought back to the store. I didn't buy the Tavira, I bought the Genki too, temporarily until I got a copy. But yeah, you can imagine my shock when I found out. Awkward. Awkward. But yeah, we use Genki too. On my past courses, I got up to like first two or three chapters, I think two. So I knew from like that point onward, I was gonna go into entirely new material, entirely new, entirely new stuff that I had not. And I'm not gonna lie, that was absolutely terrifying. But it worked out fine. It worked out. Okay. The other thing that I used, um, is actually Joey, aka the Anime Man, recommended for um recommended for new Japanese users, like new Japanese students, like those who want to self study, because like everybody talks about this thing, and I found it really useful as well, which is the Japanese grammar series in Japan, same publisher, and this book breaks down grammatical points really well. So if you want to get your grammar to a more comprehensible level, this is a really good book. Dictionary. This is the basic version, but I think there's intermediate and advanced versions as well, which I don't know if I'm going to get there anytime soon. But so the basic one, I think, is a good one. Works very similarly to a regular dictionary. It is alphabetically ordered um, in the Romanized version, but yeah, it talks about like there's some really good breakdowns here, which gives example sentences, how it's typically used, all that kind of stuff. Holgai usually talks about in context of like it's better to do this, or um, it makes more sense to do that. Well, I think this one's better over this one. Holgai or Holgai Yori, which is more of a comparison. With the one with the whole is the better of the two options, better or bigger. So yeah, this is really good. This is really good if you want to go to. So yeah, so I guess the next question I'm going to answer is why did you try doing a game playthrough in Japanese, probably knowing full well that you're probably not going to do it because I wanted to practice more. I wanted to practice streaming in a Japanese context, even if it wasn't going to be very good. And I picked games that I have completed in the past that I knew, and it was an excuse for me to play titles that I've wanted to play again for a long time. And in this case, it was two major anniversaries. That was the issue. But a couple of things kind of, no problems kind of popped up when I. Number one was the game controls weren't um, compared to when you play the console, but that's kind of a given when it comes to these emulation things that you might not have to really um, emulation compared to the official copies. So that was one issue that I came across pretty immediately. And then the other thing, which has been the overall thread of this experience, is that I didn't have the words for this, and that was kind of the overall frustration that I was feeling the entire thing, which was I just didn't have to the vocab or the grammar to explain it. And it did come to a bunch of emotional crises. So that's why I ultimately decided that streaming was going to be focusing, which is but I was going to end up being choose to continue to play through. So I decided to table it until I came back. And I really wanted to go well, but it turns out like two things that were happening. One was, well, it turns out you need Wi-Fi to activate the DVD capability streaming, which I had no idea that was a thing for Sony because like the previous consoles never had that and couldn't stream. And then the other thing was, well, because it was a school network and it didn't give you, they didn't give you permission or like the IT explanation as to how to get consoles to let the consoles have an exemption to get on the network. So I was just too tired to do that. I ended up tabling console streaming. So thankfully, now that things are back home, rest assured we will resume everything pretty soon. So I decided for the Nanoka Special that I was going to focus mostly on blogging my over journaling and certainly streaming because I could tell getting really exhausted. So I'll put my head up, but yeah, like immersion, it is not for the weak-willed. Like for those who do immersion, kudos to you, especially if you happen to do languages that are considered difficult compared to your native language. Asiatic languages tend to be considered the hardest for English speakers, namely Chinese, Mandarin, Mandarin, Korean, and Japanese. These are the top three hardest ones to acquire working proficiency in. And if you really dive in, you might like in an ideal world, you should be able to acquire working fluency. And we did basically a year's worth of material, like basically the entire Dempsey 2 in 2 months, which is pretty awesome. And here are some tips that I can give you if you are going to try something like this or go to Middlebury itself that I think would be pretty useful for you to know before you. So, number one, especially if you're doing a, if you're not doing a romance or a Germanic language, drop your expectations to the ground. Do yourself a favor and drop your expectations to the ground because you might like you are not gonna make as much progress as compared to your romantic and dramatic. You're just not, especially if you're like your primary language or your primary language is let's take a plural here. Especially if your primary languages don't hit the Asiatic realm of languages, it's gonna be a different one. So your fluency expectations because it will save you a lot of pain in the long run. And then also the progress you do make, you don't bash it. Um, you won't criticize it at all. So drop your expectations to the ground. Like keep it humble. Like being able to talk is an accomplishment. So pat yourself on the back for that. That's number one. You're doing it. Number two, mental health resources are going to be your best. Please do that, especially with the way they advertise. They advertise the school. Maybe it's like, well, I didn't completely can't really do. There are some things that may sound like common sense. Like, of course, they're not going to let you do something like without mental health resources. But there are some things that you're probably not going to find on Google. Right? So I'm going to tell you right now. There's a really good immersion stress workshop that starts around week two. You don't have to wait until week two. Even just going to a therapist in week one will save you a ton. So, an immersion stress group I attended every week while I was in the program. And it it saves my because it reminded me that I wasn't alone. Experiencing number three. Remember that you're not alone. Even those who are more fluent than you are still struggling in their own way. And you're probably not going to know until either you go to an emergency stress group or you get a chance to actually talk with someone. So, so do not be afraid to reach out. And this thing is not it's not a con. It's not like I mean, while energetically it might feel like high school in terms of the vigor, at least for me it felt like high school in terms of the vigor. It's not high school in terms of energy. The difference is y'all are adults, and at least in the American sense, you're all adults. So you can focus more on understanding the language base of each other over trying to get the highest grade. And it's funny that I say this because most of the time I've was the person who was the person who wants material. And then I found myself being the opposite because okay, because I wasn't the best student growing up side of knowledge acquisition. When it comes to knowing random things or trivia or just little things that I was really good at that. And it didn't translate to actually I mean I still but like it wasn't a super high valedictorian salutatorian that everyone was my level. And so unknowingly, even though I had done a lot better in college and certainly way better in grad school. At grad school in particular, fueled my relationship for the longest time because it basically what fit me the most. When I came to Middlebury, I unknowingly carried a lot of those a lot of those old patterns of coping mechanisms into the and it made me so aware that it wasn't very so. And I didn't really know that was what was going on. Was this feeling of guilt and atonement for past mistakes until probably near the end. And that's the next thing I want to give. There's going to be some sort of disembodiment that you're going to probably deal with the language, especially if you learn it at an older age. I mean, I did start learning Japanese in my early mid 20s, so I was still relatively young when I learned it, but not obviously not as young. So I'm gonna so you're gonna feel the divide more if you learn to be older. On the other hand, though, this is a chance for you to be much gentler with yourself and make mistakes you need to. And yeah, I felt really disembodied with Japanese. When I came back home, I thought I had basically committed. I didn't feel up with that defense years. I wasn't watching anime. I was watching anime just mainly. J-dramas, midnight drama, a few things I was watching back then. And then I also kind of noticed that there was a bit of a disconnect when it came to in Japanese. And there was a phenomenon that is a thing. I think it's called foreign language learning syndrome, what they call it. But essentially, when you're learning a new language, you're basically carving a new pathway. So your access to your memories in your target language are probably not going to be as your native languages, and as a result, when it feels like you're trying to explain what's going on in your language, especially when you're in the initial stages of learning it, in your brain, you can think of the answer immediately. You can look up like several reasons, and when you're trying to speak it in your target language, it's like you're back to being a baby again. So, like, simple. Why do I learn Japanese? In English, I can look up several reasons right off the bat. But then try asking me the same question in Japanese itself. It's also like, uh, 楽しいと思います. Like I could like in my head I could think of several reasons, or like the reasons are kind of right there in the back of my head, but I just can't articulate. That's very common actually when you're until eventually things stop swimming and start making sense. That was something that I came across quite a bit so please know, please know that you are not alone in that feeling. If anything, like that feeling of just not feeling very smart when you're learning a language is very normal. Like I thought it was a problem with me. Like that's something I wish they told me in the program was things that are normal in the learning process versus what might be a crisis that we're supposed to into. I think modules like that would be really cool. So a little bit of a small one right here, just me doing this video, is if you feel like there's like a huge disconnect between you and the target language, know that it's kind of part of the learning process and be super duper gentle. Like, it's overwhelming. It's a lot. Like it's a lot to keep in mind. I think even people who were younger struggle with it. So people as young as 16 or 17 was considered I mean, they were still doing it. So do not beat yourself up. Please remember these previous points there. Please remember you're not alone in this feeling. Even those who are more fluent. very, very I think if I knew that, it would have been a lot easier. Even if I didn't know that, it was my responsibility to teach them. So that's something like if I did do something like this, that is something I got, and certainly I hope you. So, but yeah, I mean, overall, I mean, I did have some sort of challenges. I think like the next question I should answer is like, what things did I get out of the program? I mean, obviously, I'm not very fluent right now because I mean, I'm not talking in the language. It's been a little over a week since I kind of giving my brain a break. Slowly been starting to get back into it in small ways. But I guess I was wondering, like, what probably wondering, like, what did you get out of the program? What did you get? Um, I will say the biggest thing I got out was is the fact that connected to the immersion group through the program that I've been communicating with regularly, almost every other. There's some like the ones that I whoever in my cohort, I'm still trying to figure out whether to do this in Japanese first, but I still want to do that. Hopefully that changes once I do look it up. And then, hey, I want to. You know what? I'm just gonna check with them in English just for a little bit. Maybe it's just because the bigger thing is just keeping the connection, keeping the friendships there. Because I really like these people and I really want to continue on with them, regardless of whether or not I do keep my quotas. So friendship is the biggest thing. Another thing that I did notice that I feel like I have a bigger capacity to try new things. Not that I didn't have it already, but it became a lot bigger when as I went through this as I went through this program. Because before I would come with so many reasons why I wouldn't do something. And a lot of times I would put it down to, to two things, age or finances. And Middlebury did remind me that age is just so finances is probably the only legitimate boundary that in a way I still do. So it's trying to do jobs this week. So really allowing myself to try was the biggest thing. I mean, I tried so many different things. Yosakoi, um, which is a kind of corded dance from Shikoku. I did that for a month, and then I got into karaoke. Um, again, I started singing again after so long, and it's like every day for like a week during the final week of the helped me bond with it. And then I also learned to play Saruka, it's anime Hayaku. Started playing that game, and I had a lot. And I even joined an acapella group, and I even performed with them during Mohican. And I go, that was so much fun. Sometimes like you just gotta go take a big stick and hit something. So that was really fun. And then I tried eating yoku, horse bathing. Wasn't organized by the Japanese, but the thing in Middlebury, which they offer. Got a chance to try that out, and it's something I absolutely want to do again. Even if I have to do it self-guided. So, um, yeah, willingness to try, and certainly a willingness to go back to activities that like I certainly feel like extroverted or I mean, I think it was also due to the pandemonium. I don't know if we're still using those. Um, so there's a lot. I feel like even though that was probably the most social period I had. I also noticed I was way more guarded in my field, in my, and it really came up during the program initially, where I felt like I was just saying the same thing over and over again. 難しいけど楽しいです。はい、頑張ります. I felt like I felt like a recording, like a broken record. Just keep saying the same thing. Um, but eventually, it just made me just try and get myself out of my comfort. And I made me realize the biggest thing, which I think is the number one thing that I want you to remember if you are going to try an immersion program or language learning, which is you're not trying to be more of yourself in a language. You're not trying to copy who you are. I think I even said as much when I was learning Japanese again, um, back when I was 29. Literally 3 years ago. Like 3 years ago, it's that I literally said exactly this. It's about choosing who you want to be. You actually have a choice of who you want to be when you learn a language. I mean, some choice of who you want to be when you learn a language. But then also, you're not just trying to be yourself in the language, you're expanding who you are in general. Like you're not trying to limit yourself. It would be the purpose of you trying to copy yourself in the language. There's a chance for you to expand who you are and more likely to become the person that you'd like to be in another language. So, if anything, if anything, this is a like see language as a form of play. It's hard work, but it's still a form of play. So give yourself a chance to explore aspects of yourself that you otherwise would have overlooked. And certainly the aspects of the world that you live in a different way than what you would have. I think it really guided my journey was ironically enough the syllabus. It's that in my course. It talked about the pedagogy of it was taught the way it was, it empathy. This is empathy towards people, which that's certainly what it came away with. Bigger sense of empathy for the marginalized. Because when you go anywhere, especially if you're not fluent in the language that you are going for, and a lot of people we just complain and say like, well, why don't you just try learning language? You try to learn the language, but you're obviously, especially if you learn it as an adult, the odds are pretty good you're not going to be, even if you happen to be understood, odds are pretty good you're not going to be as good as somebody who learned it as a child who was native born. Um, Not that you can't get there per se. There are people who have gotten there, certainly, but it's a harder journey for multiple reasons. And it is very, very exhausting because, like, and especially as an adult, you have more gauges, you have more references to go. For me, I have a lot of TV shows and movies and games under my belt. Really help me remember a lot of phrases. Like I only remember some of the meanings, like of phrases like Asumeru, uh, make, makeru, えっと、集める、かける、akeme, himeru. All because I come across them in games or TV. Atsumeru means to collect. And I remember because of Neko Atsume. Cat collector. Literally means cat collector. Um, Makeru means to give up. And there's a theme in Sailor Moon, Sailor Stars season. Um, the other things are called Makenai, means I won't give up. And Himeru means to decide. And um, Yang always says Himeru every time he jumps in the field. It's like, whether you want to fight me or not, which I mean, you're playing a Street Fighter game, so you're fighting him. You decide to fight him, so like, yeah, huge number of reference points over the years. Then the consequence of having so many reference points is you're also very aware of how huge your knowledge gap is, and it only gets bigger as you go. And the thing that I have started to accept, I mean, ever since I went through grad school, the thing I started to accept is like, I only have so much knowledge that I can contain, and likewise, there's only so much that I know. And even if I managed to read all the books in the world with life and immerse myself as much as I could in the culture that I'm studying, there's still so much I would just not know, I would not catch. Even if I happen to reincarnate into that culture later, there's still some things that I would. But yeah, but so putting it back to the example of immigrants who are not fluent in the languages that they are immigrating into, they try learning, and their depth of knowledge is not as good as native or something. And on top of immersion and just very, very limited explanation can be very exhausting because of your brain influences a lot with it. I was exhausted for most of the days. I would come back but after class and I immediately just go to bed. I immediately go to bed for like 2 hours. And then have to go out, do speak more Japanese dinner and back in. Sometimes I'll have to do like music or lie in bed until my brain. And that was just an academic. Now imagine it's an everyday context where there's, I mean, you might have an expat or an immigrant community that knows your language, but if you don't have access to that, your brain's basically swimming all the time with context. And is it any wonder why you're gonna go with the simplest thing because it's that fatiguing to try to understand. Um, my friend talks story out. It's very true. You're basically going through and I would say in terms of belonging and immigration. You're trying to get into a culture that might not work for home and all you can do is simple things. And my brain is almost all the time where painkillers to get through the days. And all I could do was physical. Did Yosakoi sang with the other songs I could recall, but my sound memory was like terrible when being in Japanese entirely. Hmm. Um, yeah, I was in talk. I got too tired to really do anything intellectual. dreams ultimately. And I focused more on the physical, I focused more on the shooting stuff, using my phone and because that was all the energy I had. Yeah, I'm not really happy with that's where I feel like, and especially I feel especially for the professionals, like people who are experts in the home, because they are forced to not be able to practice, it means the more knowledge. And so I feel that this is a call to be more empathetic to the immigrant, to be more empathetic to anyone who is going through a tough time. Because it's exhausting. You often don't know what they feel safe. So yeah, that's what I came away with program. And I guess the question is what I do for them. Probably. Might not necessarily be Middlebury. I might do it again. I think what I'm finding more and more is there are some things I think I still have to deal with, things that I need to resolve before I at least feel great. And I think now I need to focus more on the experience, like as in non education related. Not that I'm gonna stop doing education, of course not. I'm still gonna continue to go to school. But I think it's now time for me to not limit myself. Which I know some people would think like, common sense, you're an adult now. Why aren't you just doing more things outside school? The thing is though, the schoolroom in a way, ironically enough, has been the only way I have been able to access the knowledge. Besides streaming, and besides YouTube, and besides Discord, which I'm going to use again, by the way, and like find a language learning group. Outside of those mediums, I've always had found that classrooms have been the best way because it's democratized. The only boundary you probably have is your paycheck. And even if you don't have the paycheck, some places are willing to pay a portion just to make you go. That's really the only way I was able to go up to Millboard because I got a scholarship to go. If I didn't have a scholarship, I absolutely wouldn't. Granted, it was partial. And yeah, like school was literally the only way I was going to even get to the depth of fluency that I. With side note, can we stop with the attitude of please say something in this language and you clearly won't understand what we're saying? Because some of us don't vibe like that. In fact, we even may come from cultures that don't do that kind of thing. So please stop doing that. I mean, actually listen to the conversation. Let them do it. Otherwise, just find one thing wish people don't force people to run off on a parrot. We're not doing it. Mm-mm. Anyway, I think it has been a call for me to do more conscious usage of my language, which I mean most people tend to say is it's the better way of learning anyway, is to just go for more of a natural environment. And this also has really taught me the like method changed. And it's time for me to start embracing it. And it seems like right now I need to get out of the classroom a bit and practice more in terms of the like, really sing to me. In my case, is dramas and Discord. And I give those a go to keep my language skills busy and fulfilling. So yeah, no, it's kind of scary at first. I mean, I think stress. Ironically, the stress of academia, I think, might have hindered me. I still learned a lot. I mean, I can't deny it too much. And that's the other thing that the other people are saying. Sometimes it might not be you, it might be students. It's true. Like some people, are, like I mean, granted, I think people are being too harsh on the school system in particular because in the past it might have been ineffective, but nowadays there are multiple ways to do it. I think if you find that school is effective for you at this stage in your life, I say still go. But if you do find that you might have gone beyond the school system for now, or even or even from this point onward, that's okay to admit too. Like you are under no obligation to stick with the So yeah, that is pretty much all I can say. And yeah, I think I might do a part two of this actually. If you didn't get a chance to ask me during this stream, feel free to do so in a future one because I would love to talk more. I am working on the vlog, so don't know. I'm planning on getting a topic before going to the conference, so keep an eye out for that. But until then, um, more games will be coming up. I'm planning to do more Jack and Daxter pretty soon. I am starting a new job pretty soon, so it might be a little bit before I'm able to do console streaming again, but certainly computer streaming that should be coming. Keep an eye out. More Jack and Daxter. Probably gonna do. I'm probably gonna do a redo of the start of Tomb Raider Anniversary now that I'm back in English again. But keep an eye out, as well as several other games that I want to. Yeah. So feel free to ask questions on my Discord, or on my Substack. Just keep the questions coming, or comments. And oh yeah, I am planning on posting a few more articles. That was the other thing that I didn't get a chance to do. Was I couldn't do a buffer of articles. Turns out I was allowed to write during my program as well, um, which I didn't know. But on the other hand, though, it was probably better to err on the safe side than to. I wanted to be able to do it anyway. Yeah, new articles on my Substack. There's one that I wrote before I went to Middlebury, and I am working on one. Well, as soon as update right now. As soon as everything updates, there should be more articles coming out. But yeah, don't be freaked out if you see this hair and then like you look at the video footage, and it's like, wait a second, your hair looks different. Yeah, I changed it literally right after I got home, so. But yeah, I think I'm gonna end the stream here. Just a little bit, I stream off of random but I'm just happy to be here, be back on camera. So if you want to find out more of what I do, um, excuse me, um, Junyo, like their channel, I did their birthday reading on stream. If you want to check out that, um, I believe I believe they're on the recommended pages. Go down there, most recent stream, go watch it. Um, I did get a few requests about tarot readings, so feel free to DM me on Discord, or you can use our coffee page, coffee.com/ponders. Link should be in the description or in the chat. Keep an eye out. I'm also planning on joining a site that does vending services for card readers. If it end up being kind of it will be in the description of my YouTube as well as my profile on Substack and Twitch. So keep an eye out for those. And yeah, that's pretty much all the big updates that I've got off the top of my head. If there's anything more, I'll put it on the screen. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you all are having a good week and remainder of August. My birthday was this month. Happy birthday to my fellow Leos and Virgos. Really kind of awesome summer. If you're doing school, hope the semester is kind to you. And yeah, finally, in terms of land acknowledgments, up in Vermont, it's the land of the Abenaki peoples. And over here, live in is Nanticoke, and the land of the people of the Lenape and the Nanticoke. They are still around. They're still here. They're very much present. So let us honor them like they deserve. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an awesome day. And of course, in the words of Master Young Sid from the Human Heart series, may your heart be your guiding key. And in addition, our heart's connection is up. Till next time, I'll see you in the next stream. Take care, everybody. Bye.